Joining me today is Professor Wayne Lesperance, Professor of Political Science at New England College, and we're talking about the recent election. So Wayne, let's focus New Hampshire. Top of the ticket, Maggie Hassan won.
She did, yeah.
So no surprise. I mean, no news there. That news broke. But I guess my question is, what's the stories below that sort of headline news? Did she win as big as we thought she was going to win? What does this mean for Walt in the future?
Sure.
What does this mean for her in the future?
Well, so let's start with the race itself. I think that the margin was a modest margin. I think it does reflect, some groundswell and high performance turnout of Republicans. I think going into the race, the NEC poll had it at about a 7-point race. She won slightly under that, but within that margin. UNH poll had it as a dead heat, and so that was a much closer prediction on their part. So, single-digit win, nothing huge, but certainly a win is a win.
So can I time out here? How do polls, good polls,
sure,
both reputable, both done statistically,
sure,
within a margin of error statistically, how do they come up with different conclusions?
It really, we'd all love to know the answer to that. Why do you get the results you get? All you can trust in is your methodology. And so what we do is we look at likely people who say that they're likely to vote and who are registered. If you tell us that you're not likely to vote, then we're going to put you in a different category in terms of our results. We want to take a snapshot of who we think is going to actually turn out to vote. St. A's mixes in folks who don't indicate that they're likely to vote, right? And so that can have an impact. It doesn't mean that they're not going to vote, but it can have an impact on the methodology. Sorry, not St. A's, UNH.
Yeah.
And so at the end of the day, a poll is a sample of the population, and sometimes you get different results. They're not wildly different. 6-point race versus a basically dead even is not a huge wild. I mean, if it had been 10 or 12 points, that would be something else. But you trust your methodology, and frankly, what I say to folks is don't focus on any one individual poll. Look at the trends. Mm-hmm. And the trends all along were that it was a tightening race, probably under 10-point race, but that Maggie Hassan had a pretty solid lead. She's a popular governor. And so that explains, I think, some of the variation in results.
Did the Democrats, I've heard that they had a really boots-on-the-ground game. Is what I'm hearing accurate, not accurate? Did they have a good get-out-the-vote drive?
They did, and this is the legacy of Ray Buckley. This is why I was singing his praise earlier. Ray Buckley, his get-out-the-vote operation, the state Democrats in New Hampshire have a phenomenal get-out-the-vote operation. The Republicans in 2012 had a pretty poor one. I think they made up a lot of ground this election. They did very well as well. But the Democrats are really good. And I'm willing to bet that a lot of your viewers got calls, especially over the weekend, from the Democratic Party saying, we want to make sure you're going to vote. If you need a ride to the polls, we'll get it for you. Do you need to know where your polling station is? I got those calls. So I know they were busy getting folks out, and the turnout reflects that. It was a good day for Democratic get-out-the-vote efforts.
I mean, so is that part of the future of the political environment here? Is this really party-based grassroots get out the vote?
Getting the base out, especially for a midterm election, is absolutely key. Voter turnout on midterm years is lower, significantly lower than in presidential years. So the first thing you have to do is get your supporters to actually show up at the poll. One of the big concerns going into this for Scott Brown was, would conservatives turn out and vote for him? There was some question as to whether they thought he was conservative enough. There's no indication in the exit polling data that was a problem, that those folks did turn out, that I could see anyway. And so that wasn't the challenge they had. They had other challenges. But yes, the get out the vote piece is key. And the technology is really so sophisticated now that I have a program on my computer that I can plug in a zip code, and I can see individuals, who they voted for in the last election, who their party registration is with. And if I were running a campaign, I would know exactly who to target in a community. And then it's just a matter of finding a phone number or an email address, and I can reach out to them.
I mean, you can't say who they voted for.
You can see who they registered for. Sorry.
Okay. All right. Okay. I was going to say.
Right.
Because I didn't know the technology was that good.
No. But in the 2012 election, if you registered Republican, we have a good idea who you voted for, right?
Right.
Sure.
So back to the governor's race.
Yeah.
You're not if you were advising Walt, right now, what would you be saying?
Well, I would say that you did better than most people expected. I think that you had a terrible start to your campaign. Your rollout wasn't that great, but you made up a lot of ground along the way. I think in many ways you were getting to know the voters of New Hampshire this election, and I think you've done a pretty good job of that. Going forward, you've got some big questions to ask. All the speculation is that Maggie Hassan's going to run for Senate against Kelly Ayotte.
I was going to say, that was my next question.
Cycle. And that means it will have an open seat for governor, if that's true. And that's a perfect opportunity for someone like Walt Havenstein. But here's my breaking news or idea of the day. If I'm Scott Brown and I want to stay in New Hampshire and run again, the only race that would be open to me would be governor. I'm not going to run in CD1 against Frank Ginta. I'm not going to run for
You're not
Senate
going to run against
Kelly Ayotte's
Ayotte.
running.
Yeah.
The only path forward for me is governor. So Walt's life could get very complicated if Scott Brown decides to jump in on that governor's race. We'll see. But I think Walt Havenstein did a lot to create some real credibility for himself. He's a moderate Republican. The other path for him would be to not go for public office and perhaps to look for party leadership. Maybe we're going to need a new chair in New Hampshire for the GOP at some point, and so maybe that's a path he wants to pursue.
Back to Shaheen. Is it likely that she will say she's not until she says she is. Is it likely that she would consider jumping into the Senate race in a year and a half?
Jean Shaheen?
Yeah. Our governor, Maggie Hassan.
I think that it's very likely. I think that if Maggie Hassan has ambitions beyond the governorship, this would be the time. I think she can raise money. She's proven she's a good candidate. She has high favorables. 2 years is a heck of a long time. It's also going to be part of a national election, so voter turnout will be higher. There's also a very good chance that Hillary Clinton will be one of the leading candidates on the Democratic side. There's a natural connection there. They're friendly. They know each other. I think there are a lot of reasons why that would be the time for her to run against someone like Kelly Ayotte, who's also very popular.
Speaking of time, we're out of time.